perhaps we will see some novel stimulants, accelerants, catalysts that shake things up in different ways. And finishing off, something slight departure from what you normally discuss, but I'm quite curious about your perspective on this, Jay, um, because it does involve how we should approach controversial findings. It may be another example of not only institutional, but an ingrained societal bias. So, as we wind down, we're going to step away from COVID for a moment and talk about something else. There was recently some controversial findings of mummified remains known as the Nazca mummies. These were discovered in Peru, with claims suggesting they may actually be of non-human origin due to their unusual physical features such as elongated skulls and three fingers on each hand. Radiocarbon dating has indicated that they could be around 1,000 to 1,800 years old, and limited DNA analysis has suggested a mixture of human and non-human DNA. Now, these findings have been met obviously with both intrigue and a lot of skepticism. First of all, are you aware of this situation?
First I've heard of it, Jay. Yeah.
Okay. In that case, let me just give me one sec. Let me put my screen share on because you need to have a look at these. Now, I know it's a pretty strange subject to bring up, but you have to
This is,
also
this
keep in
is very
mind.
far outside my
Well,
expertise, Jay. I have
I
to
know.
say
Don't
it.
worry. But you have to keep in mind that the U.S. government over the last few years has been very vocal about the idea and the concept of unidentified flying objects and non-human intelligence. There's been a congressional discussion, a Senate discussion, and one of the things I just wanted to show you real quick. I'm just going to screen share. Now, these were discovered in Peru, and they have currently been going through a series of DNA analysis processes. They are doing actual scientific work on them. There's a few American scientists that have gone over to South America to have a look at these. So the fact that you obviously, haven't been
This-
made aware of it, I can't really ask you to give too much commentary other than your current opinion on this sudden
don't
discovery.
I mean this again. You've probably seen from like how I've talked about evidence on COVID, that I try to keep an open mind about things until I can evaluate things for myself. This is this I mean this is an area where like I literally have done zero reading and have no expertise, Jay. So it's hard for me to like weigh in a constructive way on this. I mean, I just
Are you
listen.
open to the idea?
I mean,
Are you
listening to this, I guess I'd have the kind of. I mean, this is kind of an extraordinary claim, so I asked for extraordinary evidence, right? So the question is the kind of questions I have would be, if the claim is that this was evolved from that these that this being came from outside of Earth and has DNA has genetic sort of markers or genetic material that's not DNA. Um, the DNA is something that appeared on Earth, right, as an evolutionary process that led to that sort of sustained life, or actually even the origin of DNA is like this is an open question in science. Like so, how would you you need some sort of replication process for evolution to happen in the first place, and so like how did DNA come about? If it's life from another planet, would you expect there to be DNA? Would there expect to be some other process that would lead to some? It's just opens up a whole host of biological questions. I'd love to see. I mean, that'd be interesting to explore. I don't know. I have to say honestly, Jay, I'm skeptical just because but I'd have to like look much more into it. I try to keep an open mind. You can probably tell, Jay. I try to keep an open mind about things, and I'm not going to weigh in on things until I decide that there's sufficient evidence. This is the first time I've seen this, so it's intriguing and fun to like look at, but I don't know.
Well, I wanted to quickly introduce it to you, mainly because a couple of people were chewing my ear off about it when I said that I was interviewing you. Like, please make sure you mention this and see what his opinion is, because one of the subjects I have discussed, I've had a lot of guests on, U.S. Navy pilots, program directors for the Pentagon, DoD guys. I've talked about the UFO issue because it's being discussed by the United States government and its national security architecture in quite a significant way. So, these things that are coming up now, it's obviously a highly stigmatized subject which is beginning to erode away in that stigma. And this is a relatively recent development where these have been announced as discovered in Peru, and scientists, including a few American scientists, have gone over and have begun preliminary examination of what these actually are. But three fingers, elongated heads, very strange looking creatures. And,
This is very strange,
I've,
definitely strange. I don't know, Jay. It's hard because I don't know. When I say I don't know, I literally mean I don't know because I have not looked at the topic
yeah,
at all.
yeah, yeah.
But it's I'll just tell you, just maybe stepping back and maybe just to try to answer the question I think you're really asking me, which is how should scientists approach claims like this?
Yeah,
How should
absolutely.
scientists think about things like this? And I think um we talked about Carrie Mullis and Peter Duesberg earlier about with HIV and AIDS, right? Um, I think the idea that we should demolish people who ask questions that are outside of like the what the Overton window what scientists currently at is a really bad thing to do, right? There may be ideas that are there that turn out to be true. And you don't want to. The way that I think about science, we're always wrong all the time. That's just normal in science. Uh, if you're not wrong all the time, you're just too safe of a scientist. And so what we do is we don't when we're wrong in science, it's not that you demolish the person that's wrong. You're we're all together looking at a set of ideas and we're deciding is the evidence true, consistent or inconsistent with the ideas, and we change our ideas when the evidence is inconsistent and we move, right? That's the way science works. It requires people from even outside the Overton window to participate. Um, and I think that is a very healthy thing if you have a scientific community that's willing to include people outside the Overton window, and then not seek to destroy them when they're wrong, and then also seek to like say that they're right when they're right. Um, that's just the way I think the scientific community best. Now that means there'll be like nasty fights about the ideas, but the goal isn't to destroy the people having the ideas. The goal is to evaluate the ideas in a very rigorous way. And so I think that's my general attitude toward what science ought to look like. I shouldn't comment on this specifically on the science of this because this is the first time I've been like introduced to this, and so I'm happy to like I'm happy to look into it. It's intriguing but I don't know anything really constructive to say until I've done a little. I'd have to think more about like the
Yeah.
evolutionary processes that might lead to something like this. What would I expect it to be? DNA? Would there? I mean, there's a whole bunch of like biological questions that pop into my mind, and I know nothing about what people are finding or what they've said. So
Well, at least I've introduced a little novel data point into your mind. Perhaps you can have a cup of coffee at some point, sit down and have a little peruse around what is exactly going
I
on with.
mean, if I were to enter the area, I'd need to do a lot of reading. Because
Yeah,
I mean, I try to stay in places where I've done a lot of reading, and that's why like I was confident on the pandemic because I'd done a lot of work in reading and I understood a lot. I think I've learned a lot during the last 4 years, also during about pandemic management and so on. But it's but I do. I mean, it's I think as scientists, we are sometimes reluctant to step outside of about our areas of reading. I think I've been bold enough within my areas of reading, Jay. So I don't know if I mean it's I just have to like be who I am. But I do also not want to to like throw out people who have ideas that are sort of outside the Overton window. I think that's a big mistake in science.